Hello, everyone out there listening to us beyond the booth. We got a real special guest. What I call one of my closest friends in the coaching fraternity, and his brother is a dear friend of mine. His other brother is in the coaching fraternity. Tonight, beyond the booth, Coach Chad Barger, East Ridge. What's up, Coach?
Oh, not much, fellas. Well, just thanks for having me on.
Coach, you had a interesting season last year. It had its ups, it had its downs, but at the end of the day, you had some real top of the line football players at the front end of that roster.
Yeah, man. I mean, well, the thing is, I mean, if you looked at what we dealt with early in the season, our schedule was pretty top heavy. We played some dang good football teams early, and really before we kind of found our way. So, we battled. We had some turnover issues early in the season. Like I said, after the first two games of the season, we had 9 turnovers.
Yeah.
You're not going to beat anybody that way. So, when you're turning the ball over, 4 or 5 times against the likes of guys like Marion and Sequatchie and Red Bank and East Hamilton and and Loudon, when you're putting the ball on the ground or you're throwing interceptions, you're not going to beat those teams. So that's been a big stress of ours to really talk about taking care of the football and playing a little bit more of I guess a disciplined offensive set. So, our big thing now is just making sure we take care of the football.
When you got to the end of the year with that big rivalry with Hickson and a couple of other schools down your, had your football year yet?
Sir?
At what point did your football team come to its own? Game.
Um, I look back and I think really the East Hamilton game is where I thought we came together. I know it was a loss and we lost it on that last second play, but man, we played a team that everybody thought was going to basically beat us several scores, and our kids came out and we had an opportunity to win. We were actually up 35-32 with less than 2 minutes to go in the ball game. So and then they throw the little screen pass to the Hinton kid who broke like I don't know 19 tackles or what it felt like, and took it to the house, but he actually broke 7. We had guys had him wrapped up and had him viced, and for somehow he wiggled out and went 75 yards, and it's one of those things that just kind of deflated us. And then we took the ball down the field a little bit and then ended up throwing an interception right at the end of the game, just trying to make something happen because we knew we had to score a touchdown. But at the end of the day, I think just by realizing that we could compete with good football teams, and I think about the East Hamilton game, we solidified and we started rolling, went on a 4-game win streak. Then we went into the Hickson game, and I'm gonna give you a couple stats from that game, and it really bothers me still to this day. Um, you get 424 to 203, and that was total yardage our favor. We had 424 yards of offense. They had 203, and they beat us 17-14. We fumbled. We had 3 turnovers. 2 of those were in the red zone. And, one of them got picked up and ran back for a touchdown. So, and you lose that game 17-14. So, it's one of those things that I think it kind of caused us to limp into the playoffs a little bit because our kids were pretty dejected. So we didn't really play a very good game the next week at Upperman in the first round of the playoffs. Of course, a lot of people didn't play very well at Upperman, but we didn't play our game at Upperman either.
Well, Coach, let's talk about. Phil, I'll come to you after this question. Let's talk about this district, and I'm part of this district this year. I'm going to be at Hickson with my daughter doing the game. Her in the booth with me.
Oh, good.
12, I'll be over at your place.
Yeah.
But when I pulled Hickson's schedule and Anna Lee and I were talking about it, she's a freshman. She's going to be doing video. We leave the city of Chattanooga once.
Right.
That district now is really Chattanooga heavy, and
Yes.
it's kind of old school in that it's Red Bank and you and Saudi Daisy and Hickson. It really feels like when I went to school, and this Chattanooga district was about Chattanooga.
Right. And that's huge because, I mean, we have all these rivalries. The kids know each other. And that's the cool thing about it. I mean, they know each other. They have relationships outside of school and things like that. So the kids know each other and they know one another. They talk to one another, and it's a lot better. It makes for a better rival game and makes for, just a better brand of football. That region's not a cakewalk. I promise you that. I mean, we've got, Red Bank and Hickson, and, Sadi's going to be on the rise. I hear they have about 90 kids. They always have a ton of kids. So, then we added Loudon last year. Loudon's always a really, really good football program. So, we have really good football programs in our region, and, it's a dogfight every week. So, we have to make sure that we're prepared, best we can be prepared, and just dive in there head first.
Did Signal end up in that region?
Yes, sir. Signal is in there too. So, you look at just multiple different styles of play. So, preparation is difficult. One week you're playing teams that are very, very spread oriented. Then you turn around and play teams that are under center wing T now with Signal Mountain. So, you're going to have this whole mix of different things to prepare for. And we
plays volleyball, for lack of a better word.
Right, absolutely. So, we're kind of a mixture of that. We run spread concepts, but we are a wing T base, shotgun wing T base blocking scheme, blocking system. But I mean, you look at us and you're like, well, they're not running wing T, but yeah, we kind of are, but we can be wide open. We can run a lot of different things. We're very multiple in what we do. So, the big thing is just making sure that we can get lined up and play true hard-nosed football in today's times.
Bill, the one thing I will say about this district, Eastridge, Red Bank, Hickson all have elite athletes. And you look at that roster, all of them at some point have athletes that you look at and go, these are elite. So
yeah, there's, like I said, Red Bank lost a kid who just, graduated. Kobe graduated and went to, he's at Duke now. Yeah. So you've got guys all over the place. And, unfortunately, he had the kid that transferred, the Morris kid that transferred to Oakland. If you look, he's got Power 5 offers all over the place. So, I mean, he's a guy who is definitely elite as well. So we've had a lot of elite talent in Chattanooga.
Yeah, tailback at Hickson's at UVA Wise.
Yep.
So go ahead, Phil.
Well, Coach, of course, Randy, you can tell he went to school back in the 1960s because he's still talking district. We're in, kind of more toward region play now. Of course, You're in 4A Region 3. And I kind of went back, looked at last year's schedule, and you can really look at between Hickson and Soddy Daisy, 2 through 5, not much different in those teams. I mean, your team finished 4th in the region, but very easily could have finished 2nd.
Yes, sir. I mean, yeah, we could have. I mean, like I said, early on in the season, turnovers haunted us. We had a couple games where, super close games that didn't go our way, whatever it might be. Then we learned how to win a couple close games and learned how to finish about mid-season. And that was the thing, taking over a program, that had kind of gone down and had won one game, previously. So we won, year before my first year there, we win 2 and really had the opportunity to win 2 or 3 more. But, learning how to win, and that's a huge deal. And a lot of people don't put enough emphasis on it, that you can go out and play a really good football game. And then there was a difference. And my older brother has coached longer than I have. And after they beat us, and he was part of the East Hamilton staff last year, put his arm around me and he said, here's the deal. He said, man, y'all outplayed us. He goes, to be honest with you, you had a great game plan. He said, but he said, at the end of the day, he said, I hate to tell you, he said, you've done this long enough to know that the difference was there was a group of kids that expected to win and a group of kids that didn't quite know if they were going to win or not. And that's where I want to be, is knowing our guys walk out on the field and they don't have that, well, can we win? It's like, we're going to win. And it was great to be a part of that. Like when I was at Bledsoe County, my junior and senior year combined, we won 18 football games. We went 18-5. And we walked out every Friday night, and it didn't matter who we played. We thought we were going to win the football game. I mean, it was just, we were like, well, we're better than them. We're going to win this game. And there were times that we played some really close ball games, squeaked them out because at the end of the day, we thought we were going to win. And, that's something that we've got to instill in our kids is their confidence and those confidence levels. So, that's a huge, huge point in football.
Yeah, definitely. So, and habits, winning becomes a habit, losing becomes a habit. And when you go out there thinking you're going to win, and I can remember back when I grew up in Chattanooga, Tom Weathers was at Red Bank. Mm-hmm. He even talked about when he went to Dade County, he goes, I had better football players at Dade County sometimes than I had at Red Bank. The difference was my kids at Red Bank knew they were going to win when they walked out on that field.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Coach, I want to talk. I want you to talk a little bit about your wife, Stacy, and you've got kids. You stepped down at one point so you could enjoy a little time with your family because I'm sure you missed out a lot. Were you, now that you look back, are you glad you did that? Now you've gotten your opportunity back to being a head coach again. Was you glad you stepped away for a little while so you can enjoy time with your family? Because
absolutely,
a wife is a huge part of the success of a football coach.
Oh, I mean, you're right. And it's tough because she's also a business owner. She has her own hair salon. So, it was tough with our kids growing up and it was a unique situation where we were at, and it was time to step away. I mean, I knew it was one of those things that, I knew that it was more of an investment to make sure that we were going to be there. And, and I wasn't grumpy all the time, to be honest with you. This job can really wear on you if you're not careful, and it can consume you. And, when you're younger, like I was a younger coach at that point. I mean, guys, I feel like I'm an older coach now at 47, but like I got my start early. Now I was hired in at Cannon County right before my 27th birthday as a head football coach. So, when my first head coaching job in 2005, I just turned 28 years old, and my situation was, man, I was full of fire and ready to go, and we were rolling. And you start looking and you see the times that you move. We moved several times, obviously coaching, and that's hard on a family. And that's hard on your wife and your kids when your kids go to multiple schools and then you're there. They seem like you have to uproot every so often, so it gets tough at times. And and I think that it really made them close knit. Your family's about all you got in this world, and at the end of the day, they're the people who have you back.
Yeah, so definitely so. Yeah, because that means a whole lot. And I'm sure getting to step away for a little while was very meaningful. And it's probably meaningful for them, too, to have you more there than to be consumed as being a head coach.
Right. Now, I will say my girls grew up on the football field. So they would come to practice with Dad often. And like when we were in Georgia, my wife's salon at the time was in Chattanooga, and they went to school down there in the system where I was at. So, I wouldn't trade that for all the money in the world to have them girls down there on a daily basis, being my water girls and helping out and being on the field with their dad at practice every day, and and just being there. And that was, and then then they get into sports, and both my girls were really, really good basketball players. So once they got into sports and started playing, and it made it tough. And that's what I told my wife. I was like, this is crazy. It's almost hindering them a little bit, to because they're wanting to go play, they're wanting to do things, and and it's hard for us to get that done. And and it was a tough decision to step back and go and move away. But at the end of the day, man, I mean, it's almost like you recharge at times too.
Well, I think, priorities sometimes change too. I'm sure when you started at Cannon County, it was about winning football games and trying to keep your job, so to speak. But then after a while, when you watch your kids grow up, it becomes more than that. I mean, winning's important. I mean, very important. And everybody wants to win and everybody hates to lose. But there's a whole lot more life's lessons to be learned, more than just winning football games. It's about being good people in life.
Well, and that's what we try to tell my, our kids and everybody else. At the end of the day, win, lose, or draw, I want our football kids, for instance, and I tell them all the time, I want you to be good people, good citizens. We want you to be good fathers and good, hard working citizens who do the right thing. So, that's the stress. A lot of times, I saw a meme the other day that said that football coaches many times lose more sleep over other people's kids than even their own parents. So we do, man. You worry about your kids all the time, and my girls are grown now, so my girls are 24 and 20. So got one. She's gonna get married. My oldest about to get married, so she's engaged now. So it's pretty neat transition. I guess that I told my wife. I guess that officially makes me old, but she's Chloe be 24 in September, and then Hallie turned 20 in May. So they're getting there. And my wife and I, of course, we celebrated in May our 26th wedding anniversary. So we've been together a whole lot longer than that. But said we've been together pretty much for about 30 years now. So she's put up with me this long. So I'm kind of glad she did.
Hey, Phil,
of course, in the future. Yeah, go ahead, Randy.
Don't let him kid you. If I got to start a staff tomorrow, and the order is I've got to have one female on my staff, I'm taking one of the Barger girls on my staff. I'm just going to say it. So go ahead, Phil.
Yeah. Oh, that's fine. Well, Coach, let's get back into football a little bit. Some guys that are kind of unsung heroes of a football program, your assistant, your staff. Talk a little bit about them. How important are they, and what are their responsibilities? Well,
I mean, it's pretty neat. We've got a unique situation at East Ridge where I've been able to bring in 3 younger guys who played at East Ridge and played during the heyday of East Ridge. My defensive coordinator is a young man named DeAndre Chambliss, and this will be his 3rd year with us at East Ridge. He got bumped into that role last year. We had hired a defensive coordinator, and it didn't work out. Like midsummer, all of a sudden, poof, and things happened. And I'm like, I was like, congratulations, you're now promoted to defensive coordinator, and this is what we're going to have to do. So, but he took the bull by the horns, man. He works hard. The kids love him, and he played at Emory and Henry, played defensive end, so he's played the game at the high level. So DeAndre does a very good job. I have John Goddard on staff, and Coach Goddard, helps coach our offensive line. He helps coach our defensive line. But man, I tell you, he's that guy that does so much behind the scenes to help, because he understands what coaching was. He's been a boys basketball coach forever. He's been a head coach in multiple sports. He just understands the stresses that come with a head coach. So he tries to take a lot of stuff off of me that doesn't need to be there. But then, of course, we brought in our very own JoJo Tillery as coaches our defensive backs and helps coach DC with our defense, and he coaches quarterbacks on offense. And of course, JoJo was the he's 3-time I guess it was USFL, now UFL champion, playing for the Birmingham Stallions as a safety, and he still plays. So I'm very fortunate to have a guy like that being able to come in and give his time on a daily basis with these young men and just be that mentor and role model. We hired in this year Kayshawn Cozy, who just finished up at Emory and Henry as well, and he played at East Ridge and is now going to be helping us with wide receivers and defensive backs. And then, of course, we have Joe McCrary, and Joe coaches our offensive line and our defensive line. And Joe's son graduated last year. Joe was our announcer and extraordinaire last year, where he coaches. He's going to be our boys baseball coach as well. Coached the girls softball this past year. But I mean, he's a guy that's, just a relentless worker. So we've got a pretty good mix of older guys and younger guys. So we've got, 3 guys on our staff over the age of 40 and 3 under the age of 30. So, it works out pretty well. It's a pretty good balance. And that's the big thing is getting those guys to, everybody working together and buying in, and the kids really, really being able to relate more with some of our younger coaches, and, and they can kind of, mediate between when Coach Barger gets really grumpy versus, some of the other. And, there's times I've told one of the younger coaches, you're going to have to get him, because I need to walk away for a minute. And, it's just, those type situations, and they can calm him down, and, and I guess getting older, you get really blunt, and sometimes it hurt feelings. And, and that's something that I'm working on. And you do it in a marriage too. You don't realize it, because my wife will tell me, she's like, now you're talking like a coach again. So, you gotta be that kind of guy. So, those guys do a good job of really picking those kids up, patting them on the back, but also, holding them to a standard and holding them accountable. But I'm pretty excited about what we can do.
Yeah, of course, Coach Hughes now as well as I do in this, that you've got to be upfront and honest with these kids, because they're smart enough now. They see right through you, because used to, you can kind of sort of buffalo and bully them a little bit, and, threaten them with with an iron fist and whatnot. But nowadays you have to be a little more subtle, like you're talking about with.
Well, but I'll be honest with you. I think this group of kids have learned, and this is just coming to from a coach. You start learning that they want to know why. Why do we do it that way? The old day of when I played, coach was like, because I said so. Now shut up, get in the huddle. That don't work anymore, because you'll lose them. So, you have to kind of explain the whole situation. Why are we stepping this way? Or why are we doing this way, coach? So this is why. So you really have to kind of get into the why part of what you're doing. So, and having that patience, man. And that's what I've learned. I feel like I have grown in patience, because I even told my young coaches, I said, 27-year-old Chad would not have been able to coach in today's society. Like I'd been in trouble. They'd probably fired me. I was a handful. Now I would lose it. I was very animated. Now I'm not going to bully them or cuss them or anything like that, but I would just run them into the dirt, and all right, we're going to line up and run. That's all we're going to do. We'll run the entire practice. If we can't do anything else right, I've started practice over before. I remember that back in the old days. We're going to start back, fellas. Y'all don't want to practice today. We're going to start back from warm-ups, and we just start back from warm-ups. And when you turn the lights on the game field because it's dark, but you can't do that anymore, and that's probably a good thing that you can't do that anymore. But I've also learned a lot about, if you get done, if you go over 2 hours and a half, 2 hours and 45 minutes in practice anyway, you lose the kids. That attention span's not there. And then when their attention span's not there, you can always work on it tomorrow. So time is valuable, and the kids' time is valuable. So that's something else they need to understand. Their time is very valuable, whether it's getting their studies, whether it's getting some work done. And a lot of our kids work jobs, and that's an impressive thing too. And that that's why we go from 8 to 11 in the mornings. This summer, and it gives a lot of our guys a chance to work in the afternoons.
Yeah, well, that's a good. Well, Coach, I want to ask this, and I'll let Randy ask a few questions. This year, of course, last year you was probably a little more wide open offensively. You don't have the numbers. Are you going to try to be a little more ball control offensively to try to limit turnovers? Because as well as I do, you give up about 29 points per game last year. To be successful, you got to feel like you've got to get that number down.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's skewed. I tell people all the time that's skewed, because if you look at the front half versus the back half of our season, we gave up some points because of turnovers a lot. To be honest with you, early in the season, we had our first two games were disasters as far as turnovers and scoring. And, that really skews the remainder of the season, other than if you take those two games away. And then other than, we had a shootout at East Hamilton where we lose 39-35. You take those three crazy barn burners out, your numbers are way different. But, it is what it is. Like I said, the numbers don't lie. And, we've got to find ways to score more points. We've got to find ways to give up fewer points. And, and I think, ball control is a huge thing. And that's what really helped us the second half of the year, was we found our groove running the football. Markel Sales really emerged because, he'd entered the season, bless his heart, man. I love that kid and I wish I had him back. But Markel had gone through so many injuries, man. He had had 2 knee surgeries, and then going into his senior year, had a shoulder surgery that held him out the first football game of the season, and he didn't start playing the week 2. And then, it takes a couple weeks for him to get back into really football playing shape. And, and about mid-season, man, he found his form. And I would have loved to have seen him just to be healthy one whole season to see what he really could have done, because he was a special back.
Hey, Coach, I want to talk about your kids for a minute. I've been in your locker room. I've been around your program. I've called games at your stadium. I've had the opposing teams uniform or polo on and walked into your locker room. I guess the image, there's not good kids at East Ridge, is 100% wrong. Yes sir, no sir, very polite. Come ask my opinion. What did I think? I want people to hear from you just exactly what you have in kids and young adults on your team.
Man, we got great kids. Like I said, our numbers are low. I wish we had more great kids, but like our kids are great kids. They come to work every day. They're hardworking kids. They do what they're asked. And it's funny because you hear, it's always, even in the news and things, you always get the bad. Everybody wants to throw, an incident or two incidents. But you take those two, there's thousands of wonderful incidences that go on at East Ridge High School every day. These kids are great kids. We've got good people at East Ridge, and we've got good kids at East Ridge. And, our guys work hard. Like I said, they work hard. They're going to be special people. And, everybody worries about it. I've worked all over this place. I've worked in large cities. I've worked in rural areas. And at the end of the day, you're going to have good kids and you're going to have not so good kids. It doesn't matter where you go. And that's what you're going to see. I've had discipline issues in every school that I've ever taught in. You're going to have discipline issues and you're going to have problems and you're going to have some things that go on. But from a day-to-day basis, from an operating basis, our school is your normal everyday American high school. And our kids are teenagers. Teenagers are teenagers. And at the end of the day, we tell people all the time, teenagers are going to get away with what you allow them to get away with. Good, bad, or indifferent. Yes. You'll take, if you don't think so, you can take some of the best kids, the quote unquote best kids you've ever had, and you put them somewhere by themselves, unsupervised. What's going to happen? They're going to do something dumb, because that's what teenagers do. Yeah, they do dumb stuff. And, my kids have grown up, and I felt like I've raised them well, and my wife has done a great job as a mother, and they've done dumb stuff. It's the fact that they're growing up and they're learning, and they're going to learn from their mistakes. Teenagers are going to do dumb things at times, but the biggest thing is what lessons do they learn out of it, and how do you help them get over that hump, so to speak, or how do you help them fix the problems? So that's another issue that we try to do. We have, and I love the fact that our young coaches really dive in and try to mentor our kids quite often too. So, we've got guys that mentor our young men, and, they go eat. We take them to eat. We take them, we bring snacks in on a daily basis, for practice. Like I said, if we go 8 to 11, I told them, I said, I'm not gonna let you starve. We're going to have some sort of snack about midpoint of that practice and weightlifting and conditioning sessions. So we try to do things like that with them, and make sure that they have a little bit of food around, and just try to keep up with their grades, and just making sure that everything's good.
Well, Coach, I always say, and this is from Randall Cunningham, it's got nothing to do with Chad Barger. I've never been a place that I've been yes sir, no sir more than East Ridge High School. So that's a great compliment to you, the kids, and the staff. Now, I do want to hit the staff. You and Phil kind of talked about it a little bit, but at the top of that staff, you are Coach Goddard is a Chattanooga legend, and you said something. He helps you take some of the burden of being a head coach off of you. Expound on that just a little bit.
Well, I'm gonna tell you just things like, I know this sounds silly, but things like laundry. That man does the laundry, and he don't want me to touch the equipment room. Like he's got his little label maker out, and he's labeling everything, and he's like, don't touch it. Or if we've had to go in there and he didn't know we were in the equipment room, Goddard will come back. He'll be like, somebody in the equipment room? And I'm like, yeah, coach, I had to go in there. Well, so and so is not in the right spot. I'm like, yes, sir. So we'll get it taken care of. But man, you talk about just that aspect, getting things set up. He knows that game day, for instance, there's bullets flying, 1,000 things going on, and I can be 1,000 places at once sometimes. And he's like, I'll handle this, and this, coach. You just go do that. You go deal with the kids.
That's good.
That's a huge thing, he handles a lot of that stuff and takes a lot of that pressure off of us. And, and it's really nice now. I mean, he's also our athletic director. So, even things like eligibility, he called me probably 15 minutes before we got on the phone. We were just talking through, making sure all of our kids were on eligibility. And I had sent him, a couple lists, and he's double checking, and that's just what we do. Is as you get older, you realize we're going to double and triple check things to make sure nothing's left off and that kind of thing. So, that's what was been, that's just the burdens that bear. I mean, and it's good to call him and go, hey man, I know that, you were head coach in basketball, but what happens when this goes on? Or what about, you got this crazy thing happening? You might have a parent come up and ask you a question that, like, nobody's ever asked me that before. So have you ever had this situation? But, now I've worked in a lot of rural areas and a lot of crazy places. So there's not too much that I hadn't seen.
Yeah.
And
I know some places you've been. Yeah.
There's a lot of things, when you have a player that can't play because he got kicked in the head by a horse, stuff like that, and man, I could write a book and we could write tons of books about, some of the things that we've seen and done. And, but man, wouldn't trade it for the world. Love seeing, you're over there at Hickson. You've got one of my former players and one of the guys who used to coach with me over there at Hickson, with, Sean's doing a great job offensively over there at Hickson. Sean's a good football coach, just a great young man that's going to have a really, really nice career, coaching football. And I think he's on his way to becoming a head coach somewhere.
Absolutely. I also, Phil, I'll come to you after this question. I want to talk a little bit about Coach Tiller. And first off, Coach Tiller is such an impressive person to talk to him. That he's still an active athlete. Does he get in the weight room with the kids? Does he lift with them? What role of leadership can he take that a normal coach couldn't take?
Well, I mean, just that experience. I mean, hey, like, hey, did you watch Coach play on TV Saturday? How many people get to say that? Hey, did you see Coach play Sunday? I saw him out there. They were getting him one time. You always watch him if he ever misses a tackle or something. That's the one thing the kids make sure they want to say something to him about. But he don't miss many. Let's just put it that way, because he's a dang good football player. And I was surprised. I felt for him this year. He had that hamstring injury, but I was surprised that he hadn't been picked up by the NFL. And that's the kind of player he is. And I could very well see that happening with him. But I mean, we get in there. He and Coach Chambliss, and to be honest with you, I still do it some. I'll get in there and work out with them. I still throw weight around a little bit every now and then. So that I call it old man strength. We don't go run anymore. We can still lift heavy, but we get in there and push weight around with them a little bit, and the great thing about that is when they're seeing it, you can coach pointers and just the intricacies and the little things in the weight room. Like today they were all working power clean and working technique with power clean. And here's Coach Tillery and Coach Chambliss, and these guys are performing it for them and walking them through it, and that's something that, I don't power clean anymore. I've got a bum shoulder, so that some of that stuff don't happen. I've been putting surgery off way too long. It's a different story for a different day, but it's one of those things that, they can do those things, and really the kids will see it. They can push them a little bit in the weight room. They get in there, work out with them. So, they do a good job with that. And, film sessions. And, that's the great thing about Coach Tillery. He got, you want to see, the safety plan in quarters coverage, or you want to see quarter, half, or whatever you want to see. Here's my clip. He can pull up some of his clips and say, well, here I am playing, whatever it might be coverage wise, and this is what it should look like. And that's a neat thing. The kids can see it. But, here's a guy that got a heck of a degree from Wofford as well. So, here's a guy, it's one of those saying is that's the Ivy League school of the Southern Conference. And, when you graduate from a prestigious school like Wofford, that's an impressive thing.
That is impressive. Hey, Phil, I bet I have a feeling not many of the kids are doing more weights than Coach Chambliss. I'm not gonna ask Coach to reveal it, but I've stood side by side to Coach Chambliss. He's a little intimidating when you're standing there next to him.
Yeah, he's a good sized young man. That's what I tell him all the time. He played defensive end in college. He's a big kid, and he's a fine one, man. He's a good one. He does a good job, and he gets in there and he works them, and that's the cool thing about it. These guys get in there and and really try to mentor these guys, and that's a plus. Trying to get them to see. That was an impressive thing that started with Coach James bringing. He's the one that first talked to DeAndre, and then at the time it was Alonzo Russell. But Alonzo, cool thing is, Alonzo helped us 2 years ago. Then he went back. He came back on kind of a hiatus from University of the Cumberlands. Then he went back. He's playing at Bethel now, so he's back into college football and doing well. So that's another guy who he comes by in the summer and still hangs around, and the kids kind of see him in the weight room and stuff and relate to him well. So Coach Russell did a good job there. Too. So, these guys have some really good young mentors to kind of look up to.
Yes. Phil, go ahead and fire off the next round.
All right. I want to ask you this, Coach. Because in the used to days, back when I played, weightlifting sometimes was dreaded. You had to do it during the summer. It wasn't a whole lot of fun. The coach really pushed you to do that. But it's different today. A lot of the coaches that I know have kind of made it more fun and enjoyable, and the kids actually enjoy more working out than they used to. It's kind of they kind of look forward to it. A lot of them do.
Right. And that's the thing about it, man. You can get excited in there, and we always tell them, the thing about the weight room is the weight room tells you the truth. There's a lot of things you can say, but when you put 225 pounds on the bar to bench press it, it's going to be 225 pounds everywhere you go. So, it tells the truth, and the weight room tells who's been working and who hadn't. But man, it gets excited. We blare the music. We turn the music loose. The kids get in there, and sometimes they dance around, probably a little too much for my taste. And, but it's a fun environment, man. It's great to watch them, enjoy themselves and just be kids sometimes. And, we as coaches, too many times, we sit back and, you want everything to be perfect, and you want it to look this way and do this and do that. But at the end of the day, we got to understand we're still dealing with kids, and you got to let kids be kids sometimes. So, and I'm still learning that. I don't let them, I'll be honest with you, I probably don't let them be kids enough. Coach Barger stays on them a lot about a lot of different things, even if they're just kind of messing around with one another and laughing and cutting up. So, the big thing is having that standard, but at the same time being able to let kids be kids and let them have a little fun and let them enjoy some things.
You want to let them be themselves, and that's huge. Well, Coach, I want to ask you this. I don't know if anybody's ever asked you very much. On a positive note, do you have any real memorable moments as being a head coach in ball games where certain plays or certain games really stand out to you?
Oh man, when you talk about it, you can go back and I think I have some from like every head coaching position I've ever had. Probably my first huge memory Well, from my first season at Cannon County, my first year as a head coach, took a program over that had won, I think it was 4 games in 5 years. Our first year, we go 4-6 and had a chance to win a couple more that we just couldn't finish. But we were playing for the playoffs last game of the season. But we beat our rival DeKalb County for the first time since like 1968. It was crazy, and then not just beat them, we beat them 47-7. So, that was a huge, huge deal. And we also beat Bledsoe County that year, being able to go in and, as my first year as a head coach, go beat my alma mater. We beat Bledsoe as well that same season. Coming into Sequatchie County, there's all kinds of memorable moments. My first year at Sequatchie, and they had gone 1-9 the previous year and 0-10 2 years before that. So they were 1-19. We go on we win our first 5 football games right out the gate. We started out the season 5-0. And being able to do some things and just have fun. And during that time at Sequatchie County, we broke the streak, as they called it, with Marion. We had a 19-year losing streak. Sequatchie did, that we broke while I was there at Sequatchie. I won our first playoff game. We won it in 2010. That was the first playoff win that Sequatchie had since 1997. So we've done some neat things. East Ridge, memorable games. I mean, obviously your first win is always memorable as you roll in. But man, we've had some barn burners. We've won some big games and won some close games. I guess the Signal Mountain game this past year was pretty impressive. We kind of slopped around early, then just kind of put it together and ended that thing. So, the guys really, really came together in that game, and I talked to my brother all the time. I said, as a spectator, not as a coach, but as a spectator, probably this year's East Hamilton game would have been fantastic to watch. Because, you had 2 teams, explosive play after explosive play, just back and forth like a heavyweight fight. And then, we just gave up one more score than they did.
Yeah. It's always good to reflect back on those types of situations. Well, I'll ask you this, Coach. Going into this season, who are you counting on heavily player-wise going into the season?
Well, first and foremost, we had the guy, newcomer of the year last year. His name was Tyreek Wise Bridges. Tyreek's just a heck of an athlete, can fly. He's not real big, but he's got good vision. He's got good speed. And, I talked to him the other day, and I'm kind of put my arm around him. He was like, you realize you're going to touch the ball about 25 times a game or so, in some form or fashion. And he's pretty excited about that. But Tyreek's going to kind of help us go. Our new quarterback, DeMarcus Scruggs. DeMarcus was our backup last year. He's tall. He's a lot taller. He's a little taller than Jay. Not quite as thick. Not the runner that Jay was, but I think DeMarcus is going to develop into a pretty good passer. So he's got a good arm. And he's working hard to get his reads and things down. DeMarcus Scruggs at quarterback will do well. Offensive line wise, we've had a couple starters back. We've got Xavier Hickson, the upcoming senior, who's going to play guard for us and also play defensive end. We got Dalen Caperton, who's a junior this season, and play the other guard and is playing defensive tackle for us. And then we have Ethan Perkins, who was our starting center last year, but he's moved over to tackle. And Tyler Madden has become our center. But we've got 3 offensive line starters back from last year. So, we're hoping that our offensive line will solidify a little bit. We're just, don't have a lot of numbers there. And then, of course, defensively, we have Marshawn Usher is our first team all-region corner as a sophomore last year. And you look at Marshawn, man, he's a little old bitty thing, man. He's a firecracker, though. He gets after it. He's very athletic. Has a good sense for the football and has a little bit of football knowledge about him. Then Harry Strickland plays linebacker for us. Harry he started several games at outside linebacker. We've moved him to the inside this year to hopefully kind of fill that void that was left by Javante Pullum graduating. And, so we've got some kids that have some playing experience back. We just don't have a lot of them. And that's the whole thing that, it's going to keep me up at night is just our numbers and depth.
Yeah. Well, that sounds good. Well, I want to ask you one more question, and I'll turn it back over to Randy. you start out the season, of course, your schedule's not any kind of easy whatsoever. Marion County, Sequatchie County. I mean, I'm not going to say that they're must wins, but you feel like these young guys need a confidence boost early. They need to play well early because, like you were talking about, 9 turnovers in the first 2 games. You don't want to revert back. You want to step forward. So confidence has to be a huge factor for this team early in the season.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's going to be huge, and that's what we're going to try to preach to our guys is go out there, play one play at a time, take care of business. Don't let things, and we tell them, and we try to tell them all year last year too, in football, bad things are going to happen. Doesn't matter what the game, what's going on. At some point, something bad's going to happen, and it's all about how you respond to it and how you respond to adversity. And that's the whole deal with football. And while football mirrors life so much, is you have to be able to respond to bad things. And when bad things happen, how do you handle it? And and that's the big push. How mature are we going to be when things don't go our way? Are we going to be that mature team that settles in, plays disciplined, go ahead and go play the next play, or are we going to let it sit in our minds and affect the next play? So, that's going to be our maturity level, and to see if we're mature enough as individuals to really, really be able to handle bad things when they happen.
Of course, and just to spin off of that, with only having 5 seniors, you got to have leadership because that's the most important thing. Communication and leadership is so important. And when you're a lot of seniors, that sometimes can become a problem. So guys are going to have to step up.
Right. Absolutely. We got a couple guys who've been leaders in the weight room, and one of them is D'Lo D'Angelo, and of course we call him D'Lo, but D'Lo's in there working hard, man. He's vocal. He's going to, I think he's really primed for a breakout year. He's going to play defensive end and fullback for us. So, I mean, he's a kid that I think he's going to like some contact, and he's really hit the weights pretty hard. He's gotten pretty strong. He's a bigger kid. He's knocking on 200's door, and and those kind of things. So we're hoping that guys like D'Lo and Scruggs and Marshawn, and then of course Tyreek and Xavier can all pick up some of that leadership that was kind of left. With our vocal leader, I'll be honest with you, the heart and soul, our vocal leaders last year were Javante Pullum and Jermaine Blackstock. Those guys really were the vocal leaders on the field, and those guys tried to make things happen. So we're hoping that somebody picks up the reins and kind of follows suit.
Go ahead, Randy.
I'm gonna go back to your question. I want to step back to a game that there's 2 games that instantly, when you were talking about your best games, I want to ask you about them. One, your first year at East Ridge as the OC, a Sequatchie team come in there, probably a better team than you, up and down the field in the first half. You adjust on the offense at halftime, and you win that football game. I think that night you felt like your adjustments really made a difference in that football game.
Well, yeah, I mean, we were trying to, be honest with you, we tried to get cute early, and we thought we could use our speed a little bit and that kind of thing. And second half, we're like, no, we're gonna give them a dose of valley ball, and we lined up and just started mashing them a little bit, running power and counter, and just went up down the field at that point and just took the game over and controlled the game. And and our kids, that was what we told them at halftime. We're like, you know what? Throw this other crap out. We're going to line up, play smash mouth, and we're going to force them. We're going to force them into a corner, and then they're going to either like it or they're going to quit. And we were fortunate enough that they kind of shut it down a little bit. But this is a different. Of course, this is a different Sequatchie team coming in, man. Coach McIntyre does a fantastic job with those kids, and they're going to be hard to handle. They're on the rise. So our guys are going to have to play the best football game we can play. So. I look for good things and big things out of Sequatchie County the next year or 2.
Yeah, I think Marion and Sequatchie. Auburn busy. You couldn't get them to come up.
I mean, it is. Well, think about it. Week 3. We're the game of the week that that Friday night rivals on the WB.
Yeah.
So playing Red Bank week 3. So I mean that's nice, isn't it? You got Marion, Sequatchie, then you got Red Bank, and then you turn around and play Loudon. So pretty fun 4 games, and then
Yeah.
I guess that 5th game you know don't get much time off because you got East Hamilton. So yeah, that's a pretty interesting 5-game stretch. Not many teams play that kind of stretch, especially in 4A football.
No, that is a stretch. Definitely a stretch. But we've always talked about you wanted to play more value teams, and I think it'll benefit your team later in the year. Another thing I want to ask you about, leaving Cannon, you had beat Sequatchie County last year you were at Cannon.
Yes, sir.
First year at Sequatchie, you beat Cannon. And your brother, Jeff, who works with me, talks about it constantly. That was the moment he knew you were a coach.
Yeah, because I'm gonna tell you, man, when we left, when the thing was, we came back to Sequatchie, and my wife's grandmother was, diagnosed terminally, and we came in, and she came back to help take care of her nan, and the job opened up, and I'm like, well, makes sense. We're back home. We can take care of nan. We're here, and that kind of thing. So we came back, and I'll be honest with you, because that Cannon team was stacked. They ended up, I think they struggled that 1 year, that transition year I left. And the very next year, they win the region over there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they had some football players. We had a kid named Melvin Young who was just a phenomenal athlete. I mean, this kid, one of the best running backs I've ever coached, and that's saying a lot because I've coached some good ones. But he was just special. And, that game scared me to death because all those kids, man, that were upcoming seniors I'd had for 3 years. And, and they were upset when I left because we'd built a really nice relationship. And I still talk to a lot of those kids because, I say kids, they're grown men now. They're in their mid-30s. So, but I tell them all the time, I said, man, I can't believe that you let a bunch of young guys, I was 27. One of my assistants was 24. I mean, we were babies out there coaching a group of kids and trying to convince them that we knew what was going on. But yeah, when I got to Sequatchie, we beat them. And to this day, I don't know how. We ended up beating them on a field goal, but they probably were 3 touchdowns better than us physically. And, somehow, some way we beat them, and we beat them, at their place. So, that made it even more special.
Now I'm going to bring up a couple, maybe the worst thing that's happened lately. You've 2 years in a row, you have been in position to beat Hickson.
Yeah.
And Isaac Smith, who I know lives right up the hill from me here, hits a 40-something yard field goal to beat you.
Yeah.
Last year you're on the verge of beating you. This is such a big rivalry. But you seem like kind of a little snake bit with Hickson. And I have a great respect for Coach Rivers and Coach Cooley. How are you going to get over the Hickson hump?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we were doing well. I mean, when we went on that 4-game win streak, we wouldn't turn the ball over, and then we turned around and had 3 turnovers, 2 of them in the red zone, and one of them was picked up. Then the other fumble was picked up, run for a touchdown. That last game. I mean, when you're -3 in turnovers, and it doesn't, you can't win, especially when you're turned over in the red zone.
Yeah.
So we had a fumble in the red zone and interception in the red zone. So you can't do that. I mean, that's just those are at the very least 2 field goals. So I mean, you look at the difference, and then that's a win versus a loss. So, a good 6-point swing or better. So, but that's the big thing is just getting out there and finishing games. And then 2 years ago, we got down. We were down 14-0 right out the gate. I ain't making excuses or anything, but I wasn't at practice all week 2 years ago.
I remember
that Hicks, and I was quarantined with COVID.
Yeah,
and didn't get to practice, and I was cleared to show up on Friday. So I got to go and coach on a Friday, but that was just a crazy week. So I'm having to plan and send everything to the assistant coaches, and and our kids. It not saying it would have been different if I would have been there at practice or not, but it's definitely different. As you roll through it and look at it, we just weren't. We didn't seem like we were in the game until the second half of that game. and came out and just came in. I came out on fire, especially probably the last 8 minutes of the game. To be honest with you, it was one of those deals where it was 14-0 in the first quarter, 14-0 at halftime, 14-0 midway through the third quarter, and then goes to 14-14. And then he has to kick the field goal to win it. So, it was one of those things where we were just, like I said, snake bit. Just a couple of times we're driving and we had a fumble or an interception or whatever. I mean, our quarterback breaks one pretty long run, ends up getting hit from behind, fumbles the football deep in Hickson territory, and they recover it. So I mean, it's just those kind of things that you can't have happen. But like I said, snake bit, whatever it might be, bad luck, karma, whatever. Maybe karma from all that rough stuff I did when I was a kid and young adult. But it is what it is, and when we just learn from it and move on.
That game feels so big because it's game 10, and it's just every year it seems like when y'all get over there, you're playing for playoff position. One of you are going to get a home playoff game, the other one's not.
Right.
It's just that emotion. My last question, Phil, and I'll come back to you wrap up, and I will say region this time, Phil, so I get it right. We've talked a lot about Valley because we both got Valley ball in us, but this region is beginning to feel like Valley ball in that you've got so many. Coach Brady up at Bledsoe County a couple years ago told me they were gas station games, and I thought, what in the Lord is a gas station game? He's like, when you pull into the gas station and you pump gas, somebody going to ask you about it.
Yep.
So when Red Bank plays Hickson, when East Ridge goes up to Signal Mountain, all these combinations now within our town here, it kind of begins to feel like rivalry.
Yep. Oh, I agree. I mean, and that's the nice thing about it. I mean, we're finally, like we said, most of our region, we do have Loudon and Sequoia, who's kind of on the outskirts there going up 75. But for the most part, we're playing people that these kids know and the rivals they have. They're not just rivalries in football. I mean, it's basketball as well. We've had some barn burners in basketball with Saudi Daisy and Red Bank here recently too. So, it's a rivalry in multiple sports. So, we're just excited about, getting after everybody in Chattanooga and just kind of seeing where we fall.
Well, Coach, it's just not football or it's not basketball. I have a 14-year-old track runner who every time the word Saudi Daisy comes up, she just kind of looks around and spits on the ground and goes out her business. So the kids get it, and I'm glad it's here. Phil, you were here back when it mattered in the city limits of Chattanooga, and it's nice to see it again.
Oh yeah, Red Bank versus Ray County was a big rivalry back then. But most of the time, you played Hickson, Saudi Daisy, all those teams that were around. And of course, Baylor and McCallie we played. I mean, when I was in junior high school, we played Baylor and McCallie. We didn't play them in high school. But it's a shame they're not in the mix. But the way things work, it is what it is. That changed things a lot when you used to have county schools and city schools playing, and so that's kind of changed that a little bit. But Coach, I want to ask you about this now. When I grew up, I played Pee Wee football at East Ridge. I think it was 76 and 77. I remember the locker room used to be up underneath the bleachers, and we'd go in as Pee Wee players. The football players would be around, and the locker room would be open. We just kind of mingle our way in, and it was just neat to see those helmets hanging on the hooks. And then you go out, and even at 9 and 10 years old, I noticed the name Raymond James was on the stadium even back then. Do you talk to your kids about the history of Raymond James and what he has meant? Because kids love history.
Well, they do, and the big thing is they know that's Coach James's dad, and all of our kids know Coach James. Coach James still swings by and talks to the kids, and and we have that facility now that's second to none in Hamilton County Public Schools as far as a field house and weight room because of Tim James. And Tim was a tireless worker there at East Ridge, and he was all East Ridge. And I'm just telling you, man, he's still East Ridge to the core. And you couldn't ask for a better dude. I mean, just be honest with you. He's one of my best friends, and you couldn't ask for a better person. But that guy did so much to push East Ridge and to get for East Ridge and to work for East Ridge that he deserves some sort of medal, especially from the city of East Ridge because of what he's done. And and these kids don't even realize it sometimes. That's why I tell them all the time. I said, y'all don't realize what that man has given you and what he's given to East Ridge High School. And and then people don't realize it.
The role he's in now is very critical to all schools. He's the director of athletics for all of Hamilton County schools. So
absolutely. And if you've noticed, I mean, these guys are getting, athletics took a back seat. You don't really talk about it too much, but athletics took a back seat in Hamilton County for a long time. And, and facilities have gotten, in shambles in some places and, and those kind of things. And we're really working hard at East Ridge to get other facilities, not just football. I mean, our football facility is pretty good shape, but to get our baseball and our softball facilities back and working on the gym and trying to get the gym back to excellent, facility wise. And those guys are really working hard. So, that's kind of what we're really pushing for.
Yeah. And coach, and of course, like down here in Northeast Alabama, where I'm at, coaches talk about it all the time. Athletics has become an investment because it costs so much to put a kid on the field. You have to invest in your infrastructure, so to speak, because these kids want to play in nice facilities. They don't want to play in dumps. Used to, they just played because they just wanted to play football. But you got to give them something to play for now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. And, and if you look around, I mean, they've started the field at Howard now. Howard's getting turf. So they've already, dug that field up. Udawal's turf just got finished. Saudi Daisy's turf just got finished. And Howard's is getting worked on, should be finished soon. And then you'll look at the next few years, there'll be other schools, that'll have that opportunity as well. And I've got my fingers crossed that, East Ridge High School will be on there soon because Coach Barger's getting to the age where he's about tired of doing field work. So, we're in that situation, but, got my fingers crossed that we're on that short list of being able to supply that turf. Because, man, I'm going to tell you, with the facility and setting we have at our place, you put turf out there, and that's going to make that whole stadium just pop, especially with that new field house and everything else there too. So, that would be special to be able to see that happen.
Go ahead, Randy.
Coach, I'm just I just now thought of that, and that would be nice. And Coach James, been athletic director, has seen a rise in Hamilton County sports, period.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, anything you want to say, Coach, before we get out of here? Got any fundraisers? Got anything we need to hit on?
No, right now, I mean, we'll be doing our fence sponsors coming up. We can buy banners to hang on our fence, those kind of things. We'll be doing a calendar fundraiser where our kids are doing the 30 days of Pioneer football will be coming up soon. So, anybody wants to hop in and help out those Pioneers would be outstanding because, helmets aren't cheap. And, I've priced a few here recently, and I tell you, some of these companies are in love with their product, and it's gotten to the point where, the big thing is a lot of times when you talk about fundraising, you can do a presentation. We used to do the presentation of this is what it's going to cost per football player. Yeah. I don't even want to do that now because when you try to show parents and things what it actually costs, they'll look you in the eye and think you're lying to them. Because it's very easy between $750 to $1,000 per kid to have them equipped, with uniform and all out on a football field on a Friday night. When you count helmets, shoulder pads, girdles, and uniform and all that stuff. It can run anywhere from $750 to up to $1,000 to get those kids out there. And then I've seen these new helmets coming out that everybody wants to use, like in the NFL. Those things are $899 a pop. So I think is that the Vicus, I guess is what they're called. I don't see East Ridge buying too many of those recently, but maybe as we move forward, we might be able to find some of those. But those things are very nice, but they're very, very expensive. So I mean, just being able to basically your program is funded through fundraising and ticket sales, and that's what people don't understand. Sometimes you feel like you're always asking the community for money, but at the end of the day, I mean, that's the only revenue we're getting other than our ticket sales. And when you look at budgeting, it's pretty intense, especially what you pay officials now and what you pay, for travel. And, and Hamilton County is a different animal when it comes to travel, because, most of the buses they're busing in Hamilton County is contracted. So you kind of have to bid that out and try to find the best price. And, and it's not pretty. Travel gets expensive. Security at ball games get expensive. I mean, when you start talking funds, you get all this money out up front. You better clear $3,000 or $4,000 at a football game on the gate just to make any money, because you're looking at $2,000 to $3,000 going to be taken out and other stuff, whether it be with officials and paint and and security and everything else. So it's a tough road to hoe.
Yeah, and that's not even counting turning the lights on. I know down here in Alabama, like your 1A schools, sometimes the officials take up about half the gate. So it hurts. And, like Coach Chad Granadider said, he had to order 10 new helmets, $400 a piece. So
yes.
It gets very expensive,
Right.
for all schools. And like I say, it's an investment now. And you're investing in these kids. So, parents, businesses have to let go a little bit of money, or programs are going to fail. Yeah.
And that's what worries you sometimes as a smaller, if your program gets smaller, and then even at smaller schools. I was at Clay County, and that was always in the back of my mind. It's like, how are we going to get this paid for? How are we going to pay for this? How are we going to pay for that? And you always want to give your kids stuff to wear too. I mean, you start talking about t-shirts, shorts, their pride packs and things like that. But when you're buying a t-shirt and short set, those things aren't cheap either. I mean, you're looking, if you get, kind of the off-brand, the kids kind of snub their nose sometimes. You get off-brand stuff, and it's still, $30, $40 a set, and then you have to buy 40 of them. You're looking at $1,200, $1,300 just for a t-shirt and short set. But then if you buy your Under Armours or your Nikes and those, now you're talking, $45, $50 plus dollars sometimes. So, and then, they always want more. They want compressions and, and then, hoodies and all this other stuff too. So, when you start talking that kind of player pack, then it gets pretty expensive.
I'm pro snack bar in the broadcast booth myself. I'm not to be jealous, but just throwing it out. So.
Oh yeah, we might have to have some snacks up there or something.
I'm looking so forward to this, because I just love coming to East Ridge, and I'm so glad that I'm going to be there for this game. And I've been coming with Sequatchie County, but this is a little different. Going to bring over my kiddo, and she's going to be flying around and excited. So I'm glad you're doing well over there, Coach. And it seems like outside the numbers, the program is pointing 100% in the right direction.
Well, we hope so.
Bill, you got anything to follow up?
I will follow. I think the game when you play with Hickson, hadn't it been rescheduled to the 31st?
Well, I'll have to look and see.
I think that's what it is. Well, Randy already has his Halloween costume on, so he'll fit right in.
Uh-oh.
I'm coming out, Coach.
That sounds good, guys.
Hey, if we play on Thursday night, I'm going to get Phil up to watch the game too.
Hey, even better. Sounds good to me.
Maybe I can make it up that way on a Thursday night.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Well, for Randall Cunningham, for Phil Harris, for Coach Chad Barger, we're bond the booth. Go out and support East Ridge football, Chattanooga football, Alabama football, Valley football, anywhere you hear our voice. High school football is a way to watch a young man become better. So go support your local team. Good night. God bless.
Yes, sir.